Arknight Endfield 6 months later. How I actually feel.
So, it's been exactly 6 months since Enfield's release,
Yep.
and I gotta say, it's been quite the journey with all of its ups and downs. I believe I've put in a total of 500 hours by now into the game.
Just in case if some of you guys thought that I'm some LARPer from the MiHoYo game, I'm able to get all the trim from the boss, and I got level 40 contingency contract without the Estella. So I do consider myself moderately hardcore with this game. And of course, not only I built my own factory, I also shared it and makes it a video.
And I think the most
Okay.
surprising thing to me is how much my opinion has changed about Enfield back when I first reviewed it. Some of the critiques I had at launch are still here, others have improved significantly, and recent patches
Yeah, like the dry patch at the 1.2, that was like, I've never seen a patch that dry before, not gonna lie.
introduced enough major changes that I think the game deserves a
Damn, I think she's like really hot. Definitely gonna pull for her.
proper reassessment. And so I thought, why not make an updated review of the game, especially since 1.4 patch recently went live, which
Yeah, I've been like thinking about making this review video, but it actually took a lot of effort to push this out, and I was working on the factory.
we'll talk about as well. Anyway, so I would say there's few key things that really stood out over the period of 6 months while playing the game. One of which would be progression. Majority of gacha games have their artifact system, meaning
The progression actually feels okay-ish at this point. I can mix up about 3 teams with battle pass, which gonna help you progress a lot better. I don't know how is it like to not purchase the battle pass, but also you are not exactly getting them for free.
the grind never really stops. You're always chasing the next best piece, or still struggling with suboptimal pieces thanks to bad luck. Now, at first, I thought since Enfield's gear system is all predetermined, you just need to level it with some RNG. The worst it can do is time get us with the artificing catalysts.
Yeah, it's fine though. Actually, the amounts of catalysts are sufficient at this point. I don't really feel like I'm lacking of it. I still got like 300 in my storage, and that is amounts of catalysts that you can max out a gear of a character pretty much anytime.
Well, that's kinda still true, but unless you're pulling for every new character, it just feels so easy to max out any unit in the game within
Yeah, I don't really pull a lot of new characters though. I only pull for Zhang Fang Yi, Levitain, Minfu, and the Gilberta. But if you're also like pulling for Yvonne, Tang Tang, I can picture that you're gonna have to do a little bit of management.
reasonable amount of time. Granted, for some, this might be a drawback since everyone's character will be the same unless you go for some different offset pieces, but even then, even if you gotta power through the new update, most of the latest gear can still be maxed out and ready within like 48 hours, provided you stockpile
I would say if you got enough material, you can definitely max it immediately.
some of those catalysts. Same goes for talents. You can easily stockpile the materials. Really, the only worst part of RNG is the essence farming. Granted,
Nah, it's not even bad. I think it's pretty good. You get to grind a bit. The coolant gel that you got from failing the enhancing gonna help you levels up with the guarantee. So I think it's pretty good overall for the end game content, cause you literally get the best gear after you finish the grind. Unlike all the other gacha game, you're gonna need a lot of lucks to get like the full pieces.
I think around 1.2 or 1.3, I can't remember when, we got these really OP turrets you can just use to AFK farm the enemies, which is pretty funny. But regardless,
You can actually just stand in the middle of the area and just let it do its job, and you can just walk out of the room, do other stuff like getting you a drink, go to the toilet, and the grind gonna be finished by the time you walk back. It's pretty convenient, not gonna lie.
pretty clear that maxing out a characters with all the materials is quite
And on top of that, like you're spending 160 sanity, it can burn through that pretty quickly. So I think it's pretty good.
easy in the game, which to me is a huge plus and provides me with a sense of completion. Obviously, we did see a couple of times now when some of the gear sets got updated and you'd have to recraft them to achieve better results, but I think we can all agree that gearing is the chill part of the game. However, because there's more and more gear that gets released with every update, the latest change the devs introduced with 1.4 was intermediary gear. You can obtain fully artifice from just doing Arcane's trial, and hopefully future trials as well. It's about 20% worse in terms of stats,
fine,
but it's perfectly serviceable gear.
20% worse. Yeah, let's check on it, how it's actually like. I can just craft one of these random gear and it's actually fully upgraded, so you don't have to like artifice it further. I think a really good part about these types of gear is that you don't necessarily have to build factory to get all these types of gear. Yeah, so it's gonna be so much easier for casual player since factory is all about the gear.
But it's perfectly serviceable gear until you can get the best in slot stuff. So nice thing to have for newbies, or even for Arcane if you pull for her, and just want to take your time exploring the new 1.4 story, which needs to be completed before you can access her best gear. But let's be honest, the reason why we get to stockpile stuff was due to several times the game went into content drive phase. So most of the days you just end up logging in, do dailies, and log out. Personally, I fully cleared.
Yeah, actually dailies takes a lot of time, takes more time than I expected.
Valley 4 during 1.0, and then only around the middle of 1.3 patch, I actually went ahead and 100% cleared Wuling areas and quests. I think it took me about 18 episodes of Charmed, each lasting 44 minutes or so around 13 hours to get all stuff done before 1.4. Don't ask me why I watched the show from 1998, it's a nostalgia thing here in Lithuania. But yeah, I actually even fully cleared Etch Space Salvage and all the other content
I fully
like
cleared this too, and this too.
Umbral Monument, Delver of the Cryptic, and of course, all of the limited events. But still, with all of that taken into consideration, I would say, yeah, the content dryness was noticeable at times. To me, it's not a big deal since I can play other stuff besides Endfield, but perhaps for...
How did he have so much time? I mean, like, I've been busting the content on the Endfield, but I just kind of like failed to manage the exploration and all the stuff.
For others, they wanted more because I do remember back in 1.1, Qingbo's Stockade was the only new zone, and the patch felt really small after 1.0's huge launch. Same goes for 1.3, where after waiting so long for new content to drop ever since
the problem wasn't exactly the content dry, is lagging of content that is like that got the replayability, like the contingency contract.
Previous patch, we got a filler story in Swordwall Dale, so I get it, the pacing of content wasn't ideal. Now, the other thing I've noticed was my really bad memory when it comes to base management. Whether I copied or built my own production lines,
coming back... Yeah, that's Killstin 5 base. I can tell it like almost immediately.
Coming back even after like a few weeks, I literally had no idea what's happening, hence I needed to reabsorb all the info, which especially becomes tedious when there's more outposts scattered around with all the factory stuff. I have no suggestions how to solve this issue from a design standpoint, but for example, once I built all my stuff in Valley 4, I never looked back. However, in Wuling, almost every patch there's some new component or resource that will require you to rebuild your existing production lines. Sometimes...
Yeah, that's like super fun for me though, because I'm pretty hardcore when it comes to like factory building. I probably enjoy the factory more than the main game itself, not gonna lie.
It doesn't have to be a complete overhaul, but in 1.4 with the addition of gas, yeah, everything needs to be overhauled to accompany so much new stuff, even if it is simplifying.
And the other thing about other people's blueprint are like, they're just adding too many conduits. And in my opinion, the less conduit you're using, your factory gonna be easier to set up.
A lot of the previous production lines. Like, for example, creating Arknight was quite the task, but now in 1.4, you just capture Shiragen gas into these conduits and drag the underground pipes to the new outpost, which is actually quite easy since you can hold the connection when teleporting, and then you hook up the gas to this new transmitting unit, and poof, you're now generating lots of Arknight, baby. I mean, I love factory games, but usually I play them actively.
I know that he just set this up in a split second, but seeing this going up to 30 just grind my gear.
Until I get bored. Then I quit, and when I come back, I just usually...
Yeah, you're gonna use like control port to regulate the amounts of gas into this solid gas transmuting unit.
Start from a new save file. In Endfield, going back and relearning what your base does can be a little daunting sometimes. Luckily, of course, there's guides on YouTube which help significantly. Finally, the last point to
I don't really have any problem on like relearning the factory because I've been constantly thinking about it all the time, and I've been like improving my factory pretty much like on a pretty much a almost daily basis.
Address would be the end game of
And back in like 1.2 and 1.3, I gotta troubleshoot the factory on the Discord with people. I could tell almost immediately which part got problem when I see the number. But I'm pretty glad that like the factory that I pull off this time, I don't really get anyone with issue coming in. Aside for some issue like they forgot to connect some pipe or conduit.
Endfield. Yeah, before 1.3 update, it was just Umbral Monument, which was decent. You get 10 minutes to complete each fight. The last 2 cycles actually contained some fun and unique challenges, but it was obviously not enough.
The combat in the Arknight Endfield is like vastly different from any other gacha game on the market. Like in other gacha game, once you got the right team for the right enemy, all you do is really to just play around the rotation and repeating the same thing over and over to get the most optimized damage output. And the team is just so unnecessarily restrictive. The newest character from certain banner in order to fight this boss with the highest damage. But in Arknight Endfield, it's all about the mechanics. You gotta play around the mechanics. And it almost feels like all the stages and all the bosses, they're trying to design it in a way that most of the team could fight it effectively. Like we could see a lot of like contingency contract, I mean at like levels 50, you can see pretty much all types of team. And that is pretty rare when you compare it to any other gacha game. So I really love how they designed the combat and the boss. This is what separates Endfield from any other gacha game's combat. Cause like that's how I do it with the Echoes of War. I just use this like Mifu, Perika, Rossi, Gilberta team. I just use exactly the same team with all the stages, and yep, I missed the first cycle. What a shame. And I also use this team on pretty much any like Unreal Memorial. So yeah, why don't we just try this team on a random monumental stages? Okay, so we got monumental etching today. Okay, we got some SP there. And then out all the way. Yeah, I didn't expect that the recovery time would be that quickly. But I think we got it. We still got it. Yep. Yeah, that wasn't like too hard. I haven't even read the mechanics like stepping on bananas gonna recover some SP. And one good thing about like the Endfield is that like you can pretty much get all the reward that actually matter by just participating. It's pretty friendly for the casual and the free-to-play player. So you feel pretty much almost zero pressure when it comes to like participating the end game content in the Endfield. Because there's no reward that is intentionally locked behind it for you to pull for the stronger character.
Agency contract comes in, and I think it was one of the most fun modes I experienced in a gacha game. You pick some bad modifiers, and you also get to pick a few game-changing modifiers that actually help your team, and all of this culminated into a crazy first season of CC mode where Estella was the breakout star, since she can ignore cryo application on her, which was relevant because there were a bunch of ways your active unit could become frozen. The defensive capabilities of characters finally made sense in this mode, hence why.
And I've seen some posts on the Twitter. Some of them say that like the guy was able to clear the level 44, 45. I forgot, but level 40 with Estella isn't as easy as you would have thought. So it's not like if you put Estella in the team, you're gonna get level 40 automatically.
Why Estella was such a fun discovery. On top of that, even though you only needed risk level 20 to claim all rewards, people quickly discovered how busted the combustion meta is, especially paired with Estella. You could run free-to-play teams or slightly premium teams to clear up to risk 45, provided you had the patience. Even though
yeah, I mean, it's written on the risk though.
This high risk level doesn't provide any rewards besides bragging rights. Overall, CC mode was really great. And so this brings us now.
Yeah, I gotta say that like CC mode is the best in game mode I've ever played, like period. It just got so many modifier and it got a really good learning curve, and your skill and understanding to the game does reflects on your final performance. That's what makes an in-game content good.
Now to Echoes of War mode, introduced
Yeah, Echo of War mode, I just want tricking every stages with one team.
with the new 1.4 update, which will have different seasons and remain permanent part of the game. It's fine. Basically, we have 3 stages, each with normal, hard, and brutal difficulty.
Yeah, people were complaining about there were no content, no replayability, but once they set it as like once every 7 day, people forget to clear it.
And you have 10 minutes to clear them. However, if you clear brutal within 3 minutes, you get an extra rating. It's essentially a DPS check mode. Luckily, you can claim ore barrels by just doing normal difficulty, and clearing within 3 minutes brutal mode only gives you this shiny glow to the seasonal battle.
Yeah, and you still get all the reward, whether you could clear it within like 3 minutes or not.
Rank. Pure bragging rights, nothing else. Of all 3 modes, Umbral, Contingency Contract, and now Echoes of War, the latter is my least favorite, but that's only because I've seen this type of gameplay in tons of other gacha games. It's still fun to test your rotations, and enjoy the payoff of all the gear and weapons you've invested into, but for now, this mode simply lacks originality. Although the first stage is kinda like you fight for dummies, and each one grants different buff, so you can prioritize them differently, so that was cool. But all in all, I would say from pure gameplay perspective,
Yeah, I've played this mode, and it really depends on your team to figure out like which boss to clear first. So there's still like some mechanic behind it. It's not the deepest one, but it definitely requires you to understand your team. It's actually pretty nice to have design like this, to be honest.
I would say from pure gameplay perspective, Endfield has been steadily introducing new and exciting stuff. There's absolutely zero stagnation in terms of, well, innovation. Like, I briefly mentioned 1.4 all over the video, and right now I would say this is definitely one of the best updates since the game's launch. Not only do the 2 zones put together feel massive,
yeah, 1.4 is pretty amazing, like story-wise, the map to explore, even the factory is pretty cool. They got the gas. I mean, like, it can be tedious for a lot of people to set it up, but yeah, I just find it challenging enough for me, because I'm a pretty hardcore blueprint maker, so it's definitely gonna be enjoyable. But I don't really know how general player feel about it.
there's so much new stuff you can find in them. I also like the fact I could brute force my own problem solving onto the game. There was this mission where you had to cleanse corruption from fissure sites, and to reach them initially, you'd have to...
You don't really got a lot from this quest. Your factory is still producing about 20 to 30% more than you can generate it.
To walk this hazardous zone, which normally you'd have to survive by using this Arknight Nexus item, and you'd have to upgrade to survive harsher zones. Not me, pal. I just decided to create after each death a zipline, so I can travel faster after each iteration, and completely ignored one major mechanic
why would you do that?
by
Like,
just relying on good old ziplines.
What?
It's fun when the game lets you play your own way, right? Otherwise, another huge change for the game.
What? That's so fucking weird. I don't do that. Like, what the heck? Just play normally, man.
I didn't mention at the start was this material cost option, which in a nutshell states that any newest component after 1.4 update can be used to craft any gear item, but you can still use...
Yeah, that's a really great quality of life change, not gonna lie. Yeah, and speaking of overproducing, I got like maximum number of the pyrorite component in the storage and maximum of everything. We are just vastly overproducing at this point.
Use older components to craft older gear. The idea here is that you can simplify your bases by just creating the newest...
Just some little update. I think my factory blueprint, unless they came out with new types of component and new gear, I think it could last until like 2.0 without any issue and still overproducing, because I think the maximum producing numbers could only go as much as like 100k, but we are producing at like 130, 140k, so there's no good reason to update your factory.
component production lines. No need to make Heatonite, Cuprium, or Shionite components. Just make the new Pyrolite component and use it for every gear piece. Plus, enjoy a big 99% discount on builds.
Yeah, the build has always been the biggest limited factors when it comes to like leveling up gears. Cause you gotta buy artificing catalysts.
And older gear even costs 10 times less Pyrolite components. So yeah, this is a huge motivation to update your base. I guess the last thing to talk about would be the story. It got better for sure in 1.4. I like the fact Arcane's personal story was
Better? I think it's fantastic. I think it's fantastic, man.
interwoven together with the main plot. Well, not interwoven, but more like they were told parallel next to each other. And also, some huge lore nuggets were dropped by the big boss of 1.4, which really made me
I thought there ain't gonna be boss that gonna be able to top the Nephirus, but I would say it's more satisfying to fight the Nephirus, even though this one is also exceptionally good. Cause like one, you are fighting a dragon, and second, you are fighting a Greek god.
curious as to where this story is actually heading to. But again, not much time had passed its 1.4 release. As I said, this update is massive, tons of people probably haven't completed it yet, so I won't spoil any more of it, but it's nice to see the story becoming better here. I mean, look, at the end of the day,
It's not as cinematics as like 1.2, but I think story-wise, the plot, the characters' development are better than like 1.2, but not by a lot. Cause I also really liked the Zhuangfang Yi's 1.2 story.
Endfield is certainly going to be an acquired taste type of game. With all the factory management, power lines you need to drag through the map, a deep combat system, and so on, this is a game that took a big risk and went for innovation in the gacha space.
Yeah, they do take a lot of risk, and not just the factory mode, but also like the revamp of the combat mechanics. To be honest, it's not the most intuitive combat system. It's the combat system that you gotta understand the mechanics in order to perform. And you can see game like Whirling Waves or the Neverness to Inverness. They are just using the combat system from Genshin. This is actually a pretty good business decision because you are basically utilizing the combat system that a large amount of audience already used to, without audience spending time and energy to relearn the new mechanics. Even though these kinds of decisions gonna make you lose some levels of novelties, but overall, it is a safe corporate decision. And I think this is exactly what makes Arknight Endfield different. They are introducing all kinds of new stuff, whether it's the new gacha system, a unique combat mechanics, the non-RNG gear grinding system, and of course the most obvious one, the factory. They are designing the game as a game dev and not as a businessman. Creativities always comes with hit and miss. But what is undeniable is that the game is absolutely amazing for the right audience. Anyway, see ya guys.